I have not done one of these in a while, but I've had some big revelations this morning, so I thought that it might be a good time to do another one of these. Um, so this morning, I was realizing that I have not been following the routine that I kind of made for myself whatsoever, and because of that, I was kind of like all over the place. But I was like really looking back through my getting my shit together plan and everything, and trying to realize like what I wasn't doing that caused me to take steps backwards and things like that. So one of the main things that I never can consistently remember to do is like affirmations for myself. And I used to think that they were really silly and that it was just like a toxic positivity thing, that like people didn't get it, that it's not so easy to talk yourself out of like things that you believe. And it's not, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, because it definitely does help. It's not like it's gonna fix it, but it definitely does help to like to try to start reframing your brain like with yourself. So I wrote down some new affirmations that I think are relevant to me right now, and I think they would help other people. So they were: you deserve love, which sounds really silly and basic, but for me, that's like probably the most important thing that I need to hear, and hear it from myself, because like I think the biggest thing that I struggle with in life is like accepting positive feelings from other people, because when you grow up thinking that you're like somehow the villain and everything, and that like you're a burden to people, and that like literally doing anything like positive or negative is like taking away from someone else somehow, and that like if anybody loves you, like it's either not true or they're like mistaken, and that if they knew more they wouldn't, and that like even if they do, you feel like if you do something wrong you didn't, and you have to like explain why you did something, or try to like save yourself all the time, like you're gonna get in trouble or something, which doesn't make sense, because one, as a kid I never got in trouble, and two, I'm an adult, so like who's gonna, but like you were trying to get out of like flipping your card or something in kindergarten, and like you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to explain yourself all the time and like use disclaimers and things like that, because everybody, no matter what they do, like even the worst person, deserves love, which is why, don't roast me for this and listen to the whole thought, but like even Hitler had a wife. So obviously, I'm not saying like oh yeah, he's great or anything, but obviously someone has to love somebody, and I think that like it's almost painful when people, like I start to believe that people truly love me, because I think that they like don't understand me or something like that, but that's not true, and that I don't have to do like anything to get that from anybody, and that it's just like a default for everybody, that like as you are, somebody will love you anyways, and like that it's okay, and that you're not doing anything wrong by like having people care about you and want to help you and things like that. And then my next one was, most people are kind. I think that you get so in your head thinking that everybody is going to be like the people who hurt you somehow, and they're not. Like, that's what I always say about working in customer service, is that most customers are pretty much okay. Like, it's only when you let the really negative customers get in your head, and then you think the whole day was bad because you interacted with like two bad people, when you had like probably hundreds of people who were totally fine or really nice. So I think that most people are like that, and that you can't be like afraid of people, because most people, if you just like be yourself, and like are confident and kind to them, most people are going to be fine with you, especially as an adult. Like there's assholes everywhere, but I think it's less condensed than when you were in school, because one, the sample size was smaller. Also, I don't think the kids are inherently mean, but like they just literally don't have the, people say kids are honest or whatever, which is true, but also they don't have the like emotional intelligence to think of how things affect people. So I feel like it's kind of like how I rationalize, like as an autistic adult, like how I have trouble like with like tone and delivery of like what my intentions are and stuff, because I'm like very blunt. But adults like take the time to learn that, and kids don't. So like sometimes things come off as really hurtful. Plus, when you yourself don't have that emotional intelligence, then you're gonna like be always taking things the wrong way. So I think that kids, like, it's just, school is a terrible experience, so you can't use that as like a baseline for how the rest of the world's going to be, because even though yes, like there's going to be people like that and the cliques and everything, like they definitely don't lie that it is that way sometimes, but also in general I think most adults are like a lot more accepting than how it felt to be in that place, like in school. And then I said, in general, life is a gift. I don't really need to explain that one. And then I said, you're doing your best, so don't stop. And I think that that one's important because, like, yeah, you shouldn't take advantage of, like, oh, well, I'm trying, so nobody can, like, say that you're doing anything wrong, because that's not true. But, like, when you get, like, meet an obstacle, you can't think of it as, like, a setback, because it's, like, not synonymous. Like, yeah, an obstacle can set you back if you relapse or something mentally, but also, like, you don't have to let yourself go there, because like you can meet something and say like, okay, so this is something that has to be like overcome, but you can just like pause and be there and figure out how to overcome it. You don't have to let it like consume you and go backwards. And so like, you know that you're trying your best, so like you just have to keep that momentum and keep trying instead of stopping because you think that you're not doing good enough. And then I said, this is a big one too, nobody cares that much. People always tell me that, and I just can't seem to get it through my head that people do not care that much. You can like hear people talking in the store or in your house or whatever. They're literally not talking about you. Nobody cares about you at all. Like, not that nobody loves you, because that's like not what I mean, and people seem to take it that way, but like nobody is thinking about you most of the time. They're literally just like, I worked in stores. I know that I'll be standing there thinking about like myself and all the stuff I'm thinking about. I'm not like looking at all the people in the room like, oh my god, that lady's shoes are falling apart and they don't even match her outfit. Like, nobody thinks like that. I don't like, a customer doesn't come through my line and like forget their card and I have to like save the transaction or whatever, and I don't like stand there and get really mad at them. I don't even care. Like, it happens all the time, so you don't have to like feel like everybody is like out to get you or something, because that's literally not true. And then these are the last three. They all kind of go together, and I don't really have to explain them. Just, you're allowed to take up space, you're allowed to make noise, and you're allowed to make mistakes. And they're kind of self-explanatory, but the way that they all go together is just like to stop feeling like you're out of place or a burden wherever you go, because like you're allowed to be there wherever you are. Obviously you're allowed to be there unless you're like trespassing. Like, you're allowed to be there, so you're allowed to like show that you're there just like anybody else. Like, nobody, there's people walking around in the store on Bluetooth like talking all the time, and you don't like judge them for the most part, unless they're being like really annoying. But for the most part, like, people exist. They make noise, they do things in public, they do things in their house, like totally normal things. I don't know why some people, I do know because it's like a trauma response, but it's sad that some people like me like think that literally doing anything is like somehow an inconvenience to anyone else. Like, you're allowed to go downstairs, not silently. You're allowed to wash your hands too many times. Like, nobody's gonna be like, oh my god, the sink is running again. This person is so annoying. Like, it doesn't work like that. You literally just, you were born, so you're allowed to exist, like, by default, the same rights as literally anybody else. Unfortunately, that's not equal, but you know, we're not gonna get into all that right now. You deserve the same like patience and respect that you give to everybody else, and not even patience. Like, think of all the things that you're describing to yourself that you don't even think about other people doing. Like, you hear a sink vaguely, maybe, if you're really listening, in the background of something. Like, you don't even think about that happening. Like, you probably can't even remember the last time you thought about that, because it's not an abnormal thing to hear. So like, it's not even like you deserve patience. Like you're not doing anything wrong that people have to be patient about. You're allowed to do it. And it's like you shouldn't even have to say that you're allowed to, because it's just common sense. It's not like you're getting a pass to like exist. And so that kind of goes in with like the love thing, like just be a person. But and people will care about you. But the one that I think is the most important is like you're allowed to make mistakes, because I think the worst thing for me is I can have so much like confidence and momentum and feel like I'm doing great at something, but then as soon as I mess up, like in real life, but like I can explain it with like video games the best. Like Guitar Hero, as soon as I hit a wrong note, I start the song over, and I do that over and over again until I 100% every song. Like I can't just get something that's not 100% the first time. Like if I think I'm doing good and I let myself finish it and it's like bad, it pisses me off. So I like, as soon as I mess up, I have to keep starting over. And so I do that kind of thing in real life too, but like it sucks because yeah, you get better that way, but also you're making it way harder on yourself, because I feel like a skill that I really respect in other people that I haven't developed enough in myself is like recovery from mistakes, like knowing that you can do something wrong and then like fix the situation somehow, or like make it better. Like you don't have to start over, 100% start over. And I do know that. I know in some ways how to do that. Like when you're driving, you can't like just stop driving and get in an accident. Like when you're doing something wrong, you have to like somehow fix it or you'll literally die. So I feel like you have to treat other things in life the same way, because yeah, like if you mess up in a video game, it's not dire that you fix it or you'll literally die, but it's gonna hurt your brain the same way. And if you keep like stalling yourself and freaking yourself out about stuff like that, like it's gonna make you depressed, and then you could literally die, unfortunately, because that's how it works. So I think we just have to, like the perseverance. I love that word. Always talked about that word since I was a kid. Wrote a book with that title, but then somehow I just like I can talk about it and talk about it, but I have not done it, so I'm working really hard to push that into my brain. And I was trying. This is relevant, I promise. I was trying to make like my plan for today about what I wanted to do, because I have to like write out a plan every day or I'll absolutely do nothing at all. So today I was trying to think about like what could I do to be productive? What can I work on? Is there anything I can clean? Like do I have to, like, should I start a new project? Like blah blah blah. But then I kept thinking about it, and I was like, obviously this is what you try to do every day and something is not working, because these things like give you serotonin, yeah, when you complete projects, yeah, but also you have such a hard time like being consistent with it or letting things overwhelm you, because you can't get back on track or stay on track or whatever if there is no track. I say that all the time to other people, but not enough to myself, that like you have to be you and know what that is before you can like try to put yourself into like things that you are supposed to be doing. So like who's doing it if you don't even know like who you are, what you really care about doing? But like I feel like I'm always so worried about stuff that makes things around me better or other people's lives better, or like makes me valuable somehow. Like, oh, I worked on this like book or this cover or like something that other people can interact with that like makes me like a valuable person, but I'm still, like an unhappy person, which, well, not unhappy, I'm really happy most of the time, but like it's not bad to be chaotic, but like chaotic in a way that is concerning rather than like funny, which it can be that way, but like it's both. And I think that that's less enjoyable to be around than someone who's just doing good stuff, but like and it shouldn't have to be, it's not about like being enjoyable to be around, but just if that's how you have to conceptualize it to yourself, because sometimes being neutral is easier than completely like going in the positive direction that you might not care about. So like, yeah, I'm doing it for myself, but obviously you have to think about how you fit into everything else too, because that's how I think. So it's like, I just felt like my plan for today, instead of cleaning some miscellany of things, I wrote, clean up I can't read my fucking shit, especially backwards. Clean up your brain today. I made this whole fucking list. It looks so great, doesn't it? Okay, thanks. I know that you agreed with me. And I said there was 4 pillars. I put study yourself, coping skills and reframing, document, and change. And I haven't done any of this yet. I literally just wrote it, so I'm not gonna go into the specifics of all of the stuff that I do when I do these tasks, but the bullet points that I wrote under it, subtasks or whatever. For studying myself, I put figure out your thought patterns, speech patterns, your triggers, and why you feel that way, and what you're compulsively doing, and why you're doing it, so that maybe you can figure out how to stop doing it. And then your love language, and your obviously we know our symptoms of things, but no, actually, just research your freaking mental illnesses more, so you know what's actually happening, and the cycles of how it can manifest and come and go and things like that. Just patterns are really important to me, and they help me understand things. And under coping skills and reframing, I put how to stop things before they escalate, because I feel like sometimes I get triggered so easily that it feels almost like it's an instantaneous 0 to 100, and it does feel that way, and a lot of people who are bipolar describe it that way, but I also think that that's not entirely true. I think it just feels that way because the transition is not saved, because I feel like we just remember it was low, and then suddenly you're in the next moment that you remember that's really intense. But I think that there's obviously things that happen in between that we're not really paying attention to because we're getting really, really worked up and stuff. And I think that learning when something happens, when you hit a point that you know that you have to take yourself out of that situation. And that's always been my worst weakness, because I'm really good at being defensive when stuff's coming at me, but I'm not good at in games or sports or whatever. I've never been good at being offensive, which sounds like we're talking about attacking somebody, but I think in this situation I just mean being proactive. I'm not good at prevention and doing something that goes further. I'm reactive. I know how to respond to what's happening to me, and sometimes when you perceive things the wrong way, then you're responding in the wrong way. So I feel I'm really bad at thinking ahead and thinking of how to prevent something from happening while it's beginning to happen. And then I put don't say sorry or use disclaimers, which has been insanely hard even making this video, because I've thought of a million things I could apologize for while I'm talking already, and you probably might think what? Why? What have you done that you want to apologize for? I don't know, and I'm not going to list it because it's not productive. So yeah, I was thinking of, it's really hard just to tell myself not to, so I was thinking of trying to make some sort of plan of what I can say instead, because obviously, and I'm not saying that we're apologize when you do things actually bad, but I think that there's a lot of things I apologize for, and I've been told that are not actually, they're why you apologize. So I need to think of some other, I've seen suggestions on different ways to say things oh, thank you for, listening to this, instead of being sorry I talked too much, and things like that. And then I want to play a game with myself, an exercise with myself about I don't know, trying to think of what people could be thinking that isn't about me. And I don't know how to do it, because that would kind of be situational. I don't know when I would encounter listening to people again, but I think that I don't know, I could look up some YouTube video that has low quality audio or something, and it could sound oh yeah, this is what they're saying about me, because that's how I feel, but it's literally not. And I've been told a lot of times after the fact of what someone was talking about, and it literally wasn't me. And yeah, you can ask for reassurance if you want, but also you sound really crazy asking about that a lot when it's random things, and sometimes you can't ask because it's strangers. So I want to listen to some sort of audio and think of what could this be about actually, and do random things oh, they're talking about their dry cleaning that their grandma forgot to do, and then they I don't know. Thank you for listening to me rambling about that. I want to figure out like the differences in my life in particular about like challenges versus setbacks. Like what's something that is a healthy thing that you know, have to encounter, and like what's something that you're doing that's because of like relapsing stuff. Like something that's not a normal like thing to, you know what I mean? Like reality versus cognitive distortions and stuff. And then I put take up space, make noise, and make a mistake and continue instead of starting over. So I don't know what that will be, but I'm going to make a mistake on purpose and then continue and make a positive outcome somehow. And that makes me nervous, but it'll probably be something really like silly and it won't be a big deal. So, but yeah, I have to do something that makes me take up a lot of space and makes a lot of noise. I don't know what that would be like either, so wish me luck because I might embarrass myself. But it's okay because I was born and I didn't consent to it, so I'm allowed to do it. Allowed to do things. And then I put document. I really need to be like using all my journals and stuff. I have a million like for like moods, gratitude, and like all that stuff, and I literally never do it. But I know why I've started it, and I know when I am consistent with it, it's really helpful to like keep track of stuff and like see what's changing and like what works like on like what was I doing around that time that made this happen, and like figure out like how my brain works, because I literally can't like see progress without assessing and like observing, because I know that working with young kids, like that's the most important part, is like observations and assessments to like see how things are going, and I literally don't do that for myself. So and then I wanted to do a video diary, so that's the first thing I'm doing, and consider doing audio diaries, which isn't as fun but might be better because it's just for me, because I'm so lazy and sometimes I really don't want to write it all down, but I think it's good, so it's way easier to do this than like write it all down, because I hate writing. I hate physical things. I hate working with my hands, but I love talking. So it's either like I force you guys to listen to this, or I'm give you the opportunity to, and like I don't care if you do or not. Don't. If you don't like it, if you haven't learned that at this point, like stop watching. I don't care. You do not owe it to me to watch. This is mostly for me, or just like audio diaries in private, and then like keep making all these notes. I have a million sticky notes up right now of things I need to remember, and then change. I want to like figure out all my bad habits, and then how I can like combat it, and what I can do that would like replace it, which is easier said than done. Obviously, for anyone who's like tried to quit any addiction or anything, you know, it's like really hard. But I just mean like in general, like, oh, I'm on my phone too much. What should I do when I think about getting on my phone that would like be the same sort of mental stimulation, but like it's different and like doesn't cause the issue of doom scrolling and things like that. So I'll like figure out those and make it like write it all down and figure out a plan to things, which is hard because admitting to yourself what you don't like about yourself is really hard, because, you know, like, especially when you're really mentally ill, people really don't want you to like be hard on yourself or like say negative things about yourself, and you shouldn't, because most of what you want to say is like not helpful or is like hurtful to you. But also sometimes obviously you can't change anything if you don't like admit what you're doing wrong, which is really hard. So, and then even though I'm trying not to say sorry, I'm gonna think of a different way to say it. I think the person who I owe the most apology to is myself. So I want to write like a sincere apology letter to myself. I've written like goodbye letters to my past self and things like that, but I think some of that is still too aggressive for like growth, because I, you know, call out all the things that I was doing wrong, and I've tried to be like gentle with my past self and like extend like a peace offering, but also I don't need a peace offering as much as I need to, because they weren't doing anything wrong. Like, yeah, you know, you feel like you're at war with yourself, but you shouldn't be. So like, as mean as I've been to myself, like I owe myself a really big apology for things that I said about myself that are not true. And like a lot of the things that I need to change are things that I don't think about, and a lot of the things that I worry about are not, like I shouldn't even be worrying about it. So I have to be like way nicer to myself. And I think that you guys should be nice to yourself as well. So that's literally all that I wrote. Oh, one more thing. Last night I watched the episode of Seinfeld where George was doing like the opposite of everything he thinks he should do. Oh my god, I have so many cats loving me right now. So I was thinking, I haven't done like opposite day since I was a kid, but I was thinking about like, what if I do that? Because like he said, shut up, please, bro. Like he said, obviously whatever I'm doing is like not working out the way I want. So maybe I did need to approach things totally different. And then I can see some things that are genuinely good and like some things that were, I'm so sorry, baby. I accidentally scratched her face. Some things are probably like totally off. So, you know, you don't know until you experiment or whatever because you're allowed to do that at any point in your life. So I'm thinking of doing the opposite of everything I think I should do. See how it works because my common sense is broken. Okay. Thank you if you did listen to the whole thing. That's probably like just my dad and, you know, I don't know, but thanks anyways. And I would say that, you know what, I don't care. I love whoever's watching this. Kisses on the lips and stuff. Spam, do not stuff on my keyboard.